Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Nerds Entertain Podcast. And today's episode 2 of our Little Tremors Marathon. So today, we're going to be looking at movie 2 of Tremors, Tremors 2, Aftershock. If you haven't been here before, which I assume a lot of people haven't, today we will be doing a short little summary of the movie, a little overview of the cast, then I'll be going to my review / rant of the movie. So, a little summary of the movie. The main star of the movie is Fred Ward, or Earl Bassett from Tremors 1. He's the only recurring character besides Burt Gummer to return to the Tremors franchise. In Aftershock. In this movie, we have Earl Bassett that's out of luck. He didn't put any real backing behind any of his profits, so he's back at perfection trying to raise ostriches for money. Then he's down on his luck. He's actually sorry about that. He's down on his luck, and he's called by where we met our, just like all the other Tremors movie, Tremors 2's ensemble film, in my opinion. With the 4 main characters, there's only 4 main characters this time. Everyone else actually dies. So 4 main characters. We have Earl Bassett, Burt Gummer, someone else that we meet later in the movie, Kate, and the other main character, Grady Hoover. So, he's found by Grady Hoover and a oil tycoon from Mexico. They hire Earl to go down to Mexico to, in fact, go kill a bunch of graboids. They go down to Mexico, they kill a bunch of graboids. There's a lot more graboids. He calls Burt. Burt is no longer with his white wife. And he comes down to Mexico with every firearm imaginable with a bunch of explosives. Yada, yada, yada. But this is where we actually get a interesting turn of events. The Graboid turns into his next evolutionary state, which is the Shrieker, and we'll talk about that later. So they all turn into all the Graboids turn Shriekers. They run around this little Mexican refinery. Eventually, Earl, Burt, and Grady find a way to kill all the Shriekers, and Earl Bassett gets with a doctor named Kate that was I think their version of Playboy in the Tremors universe in her earlier career, and that's how the movie ends. Now time to some of the overview. So, like I said at the beginning, we have 2 recurring main characters that come back for movie 2. That is Earl Bassett and Burt Gummer, played by the same actors. They come back to the movie franchise for number 2, and it's fun seeing down on his luck Earl trying to think on his feet and get out of debt. And by the end of the movie, they do, because the Mexican refinery company pays him, I think it was $50,000 for every Graboid he kills. And I took count, and I think in the movie they say they get $600,000 from just killing Graboids. But I tried to keep count, and I think they're off by $50,000, or I miscounted. I probably miscounted. No. Actually, I'm looking back at my numbers, and I actually did miscount. So yeah, $600,000 they got, and that's not even including the ones Bert got. And I think he got four more graboids. But by the end of the movie, if we want to actually do the quick math right now, they were paid $500,000. They were paid $500,000 for every graboid they killed, and at the end of the movie, Brady said that they killed 28 graboids. That's just the worms. So all together, I think this is also including Bert's kills. That is, I think, almost $1.5 million. It's 1,000, not 1,000, $1,400,000 that the Mexican refinery company owes them for killing graboids. And I don't know how much more money they got, but in the movie, like we said, some of the worms turn into shriekers, and I'll talk a little bit about that. So there is an evolutionary state in the Tremors universe, and I will explain the next evolutionary trait in the next movie. I've decided I'm doing not every movie, at least every movie that has a new evolutionary state to the graboid, or the graboid life cycle. At least so we could cover that. And if you guys want to, if I get positive feedback, we'll do all 7 movies and the TV show included. So, the second evolution, it goes graboid, which is the giant worm, to its second evolution. So, I'm not exactly quite sure how it works. Either it has to eat enough people, or it lives long enough and eats enough people to the point where it grows 3 shriekers inside of it. Then they burst out of the ground, and the 3 shriekers pop out of their stomach. And the cool thing about the shriekers is they're much, much smaller. They're still pretty big. Like, what's a good example of how big they might be? Instead of wondering, I'm just going to look it up. How big is the shriekers? Alright, so from the Tremors wiki, shriekers are much larger, or shriekers, much smaller than graboids. Shriekers are about 4 feet long and 3 feet tall. That's pretty big. So that is their dimensions. So they're much, much smaller than graboids. They are really, really tiny compared to actual humans even. I think if you were to stand next to one, depending on most people, it would go up to I don't know, your stomach area. So they're really small, and they can easily actually be taken down by 9mm round. The only reason we find this out is in the middle of the movie. One of my favorite scenes that we actually don't get to see is Bert Gummer is ambushed by a bunch of shriekers, and he comes back to base and he's all torn up and there's gun smoke everywhere, and he just mows down a bunch of shriekers with what he says is an automatic rifle, or automatic belt-fed rifle, and a 2 9mm pistols. And, of course, I can't leave this out, a mixture of hand-to-hand combat with I think just your standard military army knife, like Marine Corps knife. So they easily can be taken down by firearms. And I guess if you really have to, sorry about that, I didn't turn my sound off on my phone. And I guess if you really had to kill one, you would also can kill it with hand-to-hand combat, probably with like a spear or something, if it came down to it. There we go. Turn the sound off on my phone. So they're extremely easy to kill. But the one interesting about them, since even though they did kill a large amount of graboids left, they estimated there's about 24 shriekers out of the graboids left. But something interesting about their biology that I don't really understand how it works. In the movie, they're basically asexual. They don't need to have sex to reproduce. But how they do it is they eat enough. I think it's not even enough food. I think it's enough calories. They intake enough calories, and they produce another shrieker. So even though that they're really, really weak, they can eat enough food, produce another shrieker, and both of those shrieker, and they grow in a matter of minutes. Even if that, in one of the scenes, they feed a shrieker MRE, and in a matter of seconds, it goes from like a little egg and starts growing already. So I assume that in a minute, if there was enough food lying around, a shrieker could easily quadruple in mass. By mass, I mean like in population. If we should say that probably instead of size diameters, that it would grow in actual population size, much, much bigger. So that leaves a really big problem if these things were like real in any sense, that even though that they're really weak and be taken down by handgun, if they get into your livestock or if they get into your food supply, they're going to multiply really, really a lot, and there's only so much bullets in the world. So that's the second phase of the life cycle. We'll get on to the other phases. Yes, there are other phases in other episodes. But something cool. So, unfortunately, in Tremors 3, just to give it a little spoilers on that, Burt Gummer is going to be our only returning character from the original series that we're ever going to see again in the movie franchise. And I'm pretty sure in the TV show they do bring back some main characters. I think two or three main characters they do bring back in other movies. I actually, in number 3, I think we get a return of a lot of the main characters, the main side characters from number 1, but after that, Burt Gummer is the only returning character from Tremors. Michael Gross becomes, but mostly Burt Gummer. Michael Gross is the actor that plays Burt Gummer, but Burt Gummer himself becomes the literal face of the Tremors franchise, which I think is cool. He's like literally my favorite character in everything. He's so funny. So, my actual review, I am, like I said in the other episodes, biased about my liking towards the Tremors franchise, but in this movie I don't think it has any of the problems the first ones do. They keep the audience on their feet with something new. Since there's a new life cycle, a new cycle in the Graboid lifestyle to the franchise, you have to come up with new material. So all of it's fresh. Of course, they're planning scenes, they're stuck on top of buildings like the old one, but all of it's a different kind of scared. Because the Shriekers, just like the Graboids before, are blind, they don't hear any noise, blind and deaf, but on top of their head they have a little heat-seeking organ that sees thermal images. And they're attracted to any source of heat. And I mean any source of heat, like car batteries, hot radios, like pieces of food that have been warmed up for a long period amount of time. They're attracted to any source of heat. So that brings a new dynamic to this, what I think is a really, really basic premise, which is monster appears, someone hires a person to go kill them, they go out there, something changes, and they have to find a way to kill all the graboids, or in this case, all the shriekers. And so since that's happening, of course, we have a scene where they have to cover their body heat with multiple things, like behind walls, behind doors. But one of the more interesting scenes, I think, is when Bert locks a bunch of tremors. Oh my gosh, a bunch of shriekers in a warehouse that's filled with food. So they quickly have to figure out how to kill them all, because if they don't, all the shriekers are going to get out. So he covers himself in fire in the fire extinguisher, CO2, so to become really, really cold, and walk right past them and put a bomb and set a bomb in the little hut they were trapped in. I don't know, that's such quick thinking on your feet. I would have never thought of that. But it's stuff like that that makes the Tremors series more interesting, that they have to follow these new rules, that they have to follow these new plans, that they have to think on their feet to survive in the Tremors universe. And the funny thing is, even as a little kid, if you were to watch the Tremors series, it's not very much a scary movie. And it's not bad, of course. It is in the horror genre. I think Tremors 2 specifically, its genre is horror action. But I don't think they're very scary. Like unless you're like actually scared of like monsters in like the weird way, I don't think it's actually scary. I think they're just fun, entertaining, mindless things that you could watch and love and enjoy. And of course, every time Bert's on screen, he's throwing out one-liners. So it's not very scary in my opinion, but there's one thing you have to realize. I always like to think about in movies that aren't necessarily scary, but they're horror in the genre form. What are the actual characters? And I'm going to say in universe. In universe means in the character's universe. What are they feeling? Because there's so many times, I think Fred Ward, Earl Bassett, does a really good job of portraying that there's many, many times that you see him legitimately scared for his life. Like, not like over the top yelling or screaming or running away. Like, there's multiple scenes in the movie where he's legitimately scared. Like, he doesn't know if he's gonna like live, because funny enough, I do think the people in the Tremors franchise, at least the ones that survive and come back later, have to have some sort of PTSD syndrome, PTSD in a part of them. Like, the only one that really doesn't show signs of PTSD, but not in the ways you think, is Burt Gummer. He is already crazy to begin with, but I think he handled in a different ways. I think slowly over time he gets more and more like broken by these monsters. But just in the second movie, like Earl, he's scared. He's actually scared in certain of these parts of the movies. Like, I think a good scene is all the radios are broken. They haven't discovered that Graboids turn into Shriekers yet. And he's literally like freaking out. He's having a panic attack because he doesn't know how all these creatures are causing damage, causing harm. Of course, until later in the movie where he figures out and sees it with his eyes what's going on, that he calms down a little bit. But in universe, these things are terrifying. Like, think about it. Like, a giant worm monster that can literally swallow you whole that tracks your vibrations in the ground. That is terrifying. And not only, but the Shriekers, who even though they're blind and deaf, and you could probably just, it shows multiple times, hide behind things to get away from them. But if you're face to face with one, there's a really good scene where we actually see the character being Eden, on screen. And the monster's literally just, the Shriekers able to literally just grab a piece of his leg and tear it off. And that's it. Like, it sounds bad, but if I could choose between Shrieker and Graboid, which one to die by, I don't know how fast you die in the Graboid. Like, how fast you go down. But, that's a hard question. But I think I would rather get eaten by a Graboid than get torn apart by a pack of Shriekers. Because they have the draw strength and power to literally just rip pieces of you off, and they actually like eat you live. I mean, they both do, but I don't know. Maybe my opinion, I'll talk about that every episode. Maybe my opinion would change, but for right now, like, I don't know. They're actually scary monsters if you really saw one. And that's why I think about, like, when it says horror genre on it, even though it's not scary, I think you have to put yourself in the mindset of what is that character going through. Like, these people are dealing with something that's phenomenal, like out of this world. Oh, talking about that, there is something interesting that goes on in this movie. The doctor that ends up with Earl discovers that that Graboids are actually pre-Cambrian life forms. Oh, something's in my eye. And honestly, when they first said it, I know that's older than Jurassic. In the movie, they say it's the oldest form of life, but let's look it up. Precambrian. Alright, let's see. What pops up? Alright, here's what Google says. The Precambrian is the earliest part of Earth history set before the current Proterozoan era. Proterozoan era? The Precambrian is named because it's preceded the Cambrian era, the first period of the Phaeozoic era, which is after the Canberra. Oh my god, these are a lot of the lasted name for whales, where rocks from the age were the first studied. Whew, that's a lot of sciencey words. Let's see what animals were around. So a lot of let's see what type of animals were around during the Precambrian era. Yada yada yada. So some examples of all these links are too difficult. Precambrian animals. So it looks like sea lives. So yeah, on the Precambrian area, it's like clams, arthropods, which is like spiders, crabs, butterflies. Here are a list of animals. So we have sea pens, jellyfish, trilobites, cynoders, yeast, sponges, coral, starfish, sea cucumbers, sea urchins, a yardra. I think that says hydra, but I'm pretty sure it means the animal, not the three-headed dragon from mythological lore. Shells, snails, clams, squids, moss, big green algae. Cool. So mostly Precambrian era was a lot of looks like underground life, which is really cool. That's interesting. So that's how old the try to go off a Precambrian rant there, but that's pretty cool. The Graboids in universe is one of the oldest forms of life known to man, which is just worms. I wonder if it was one of those things where I think they do try to explain in other movies how it works, but my own little theory about graboids, maybe we'll get into it to a different episode. Maybe I'll have a whole episode dedicated to my theories. If you guys want that, let me know. But anyways, back to back to Tremors 2, my review of it and the rant. Overall, great movie, good movie. The Rotten Tomato score is not well received. So, Tremors 2 has a 50% critic score and a 46% audience score. But over the years, I feel like it has a really big cult following. And I know a lot of people really didn't like this movie. But honestly, like I say about all the Tremors movie, it's not, you're not watching Tremors to see a piece of art or something. I feel like it's mindless nonsense that you just enjoy and don't really think about. But that's why I like it. Even though the audience score is low, over the years, I feel like Tremors has really found its niche audience with people like me. And I really thought I was obsessed with Tremors, but there's other people online that are really obsessed with Tremors. Honestly, I hope those people find my little rant and review about these Tremors movies, because I would love the feedback and to join their little Tremors community. Because honestly, the second movie still is a good movie in my eyes. I don't think the Tremors franchise yet. I'm only at the second movie in this review. I've seen all of them, but right now in this moment, at the second movie, is still a good movie. Is it better than the first movie? No. Is it worse than the first movie? No. Of course, it doesn't have Kevin Bacon and Reba McEntire, and it follows a new plot with with somewhat new characters and returning characters, but it's still a good movie overall. There was no... But the one thing I do have to say, that here's the little negative part I'm going to throw in. Tremors 2 was sort of the beginning of what I like to believe is them phasing out slowly practical effects. Even though this movie had tons of practical effects, had a giant explosion, it actually made the Shriekers into real things. But this was start of the Tremors franchise slowly moving away from practical effects and moving to CGI. There was some really bad CGI towards the end of the movie where they had to put a lot of Shriekers in one place. That's where I sort of feel like that it got a little rough with the CGI, because it was horribly fake CGI. Like, it's not that like cartoonishly like, oh, it's bad, where it looked real enough, but since they didn't move right or it didn't fit right with the environment, you could tell The CGI was bad. Even as a Tremors psycho, like, it was bad. It was really bad. And I'm not ashamed to say that the CGI was in this movie. But that's really the only bad side about it for now. We'll get more into the negatives as the series goes on. But right now, Tremors 2 Aftershock is still a movie worth watching. And I hope everyone goes, watches the whole Tremors franchise and comes back and watch my rants about them. So, this has been the Nerds Entertain podcast. And did I leave you any hints towards the next podcast? Is it going to be another Tremors? Is it going to be something else completely? Am I going to go on a rant about conspiracy series, cryptids? I don't know. We'll see you next time. Nerds Entertain Podcast, signing out.